Nigeria and China have solidified a $3.3 billion agreement to develop the Brass Industrial Park and Methanol Complex in Bayelsa State. The deal, signed during the African-China Conference in Beijing, aims to boost Nigeria's industrial capacity and create jobs. According to the government of Nigeria, the project signifies a deepening of economic cooperation between the two nations. The inaugural China-Nigeria Economic Cooperation and Trade Conference has set the stage for unprecedented collaboration and growth. The government has also emphasized the importance of the South-South cooperation for achieving sustainable development goals. A primary area of attention was infrastructure development, with both countries promising to work together on initiatives including energy systems, highways, and bridges. Cooperation in security and finances was also discussed, and a deal to improve intelligence sharing to stop financial crimes was reached. This marked a critical step towards ensuring a secure and transparent financial environment, laying the groundwork for continued economic collaborations. The decision of the Nigerian government, leading to the adoption of the Free Trade Zone scheme, a global economic model to aid widespread economic growth, on November 30, 1992, has to this moment remained a legendary step towards tracking the country's industrialization. The operation of the Free Trade Zones is deliberately incentivized to stimulate foreign direct investment, domestic direct investment, employment generation, infrastructure development, technology transfer, skills transfer to boost the country's prosperity profile. The scheme was first adopted through the enactment of the Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority, Act 63 of 1992, and this gave the authority the mandate to license and administer the scheme in a manner to fast-track economic growth and industrialization. The scope of the model was thoughtfully widened with the enhancement of the Oil and Gas Free Zones Act Cap 05 laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 2004, specifically bestowed with the mandate to license, regulate, and administer investments in the oil and gas free trade zones in Nigeria. These two regulatory agencies have kept to their mandate in a way that they have continued to spew the fortunes of the scheme for the growth of the economy. The country may not have reaped bountifully from the scheme within the last 30 years, but the scheme has shown flashes of successes and achievements in providing backward linkages to the various production value chains in Nigeria. Also, it can be seen that further milestones have been reached as a result of the current president's unflinching commitment and support for the development of the scheme in the past years. The Nigerian government's involvement in the promotion of the operations of the zones has led to the upsurge of interest of both zone owners and enterprise alike to continually leverage on the country's huge market to boost their profit exponentially. For instance, NEBSA now manages 44 private and 2 public free trade zones with 625 enterprises, providing 150,000 direct jobs and estimated 250,000 indirect jobs, with a total investment put at $26 billion. In like manner, the oil and gas free zones, which have become growth centers that complement government efforts by enhancing job creation, have significantly contributed to the country's GDP through the multiplier effect of its activities. Since inception to date, the oil and gas free trade zones have attracted over $30 billion in foreign direct investment into the country. It has also created about 50,000 direct jobs and an estimated 160,000 indirect jobs. Furthermore, it has also attracted over 185 foreign and local companies to its control zones. In addition, the local capital investment in the free zones stands at 255.33 billion naira, facilitating both physical and economic development in the locations of its free zones, with 103 functional companies from 45 countries operating in the zones. Culminatively, the scheme over the years has generated over 620 billion naira of domestic direct investment and $66 billion worth of foreign direct investment. It is therefore important to state that the scheme, even with its unparalleled incentives that appear to be like a comprehensive tax holiday, remains a major lubricant of the Nigerian economy in all ramifications. The concept is beginning to make a lot more meaning with the construction of the Lekki Free Trade Zones and other zones that are upcoming across the country. There has been a growing influence of China globally in the last 2 decades. One of the major changes shaping China's growing economic and political impact is its going out policy, which has led to the negotiations and the signing of multilateral and bilateral trade agreements across the globe. This agreement has been brokered through the organizations or groups such as the Forum on China-Africa Cooperation, established in 2000 as a meeting point to discuss trade between China and Africa. This kind of interactions have facilitated the growth of economic linkages between China and Africa, have rapidly expanded in the past decades and half. One way to deal with the massive trade deficit in manufacturing goods, which has characterized China-Africa economic relationship, is to attract Chinese manufacturing capital. Closely linked to this is the establishment of special economic zones in Africa, especially Nigeria. To further delve into the investment of China in Nigeria, Beijing, China established diplomatic relations with Lagos in 1971, overcoming the hostility that was associated with Chinese support of Biafra during the Nigerian Civil War of 1967 to 1970. A delegation from Nigeria visited China in 1972 and signed an open-ended agreement on trade and technical cooperation. Despite the close relations of the 1970s, Nigeria asserted its foreign policy independence. For example, Nigeria not only became a member of the frontline states but also supported materially and otherwise groups fighting for independence in many southern African countries. For instance, following the 1975 civil war in Angola, Nigeria supported the Soviet-backed MPLA, while China aligned itself with the FNLA, which was also supported by the United States and CIA. During the Abacha dictatorship years in 1993 to 1998, when Western aid was again cut off because of the abysmal human rights record of the regime, Nigeria adopted a look-easy policy, which strengthened China-Abuja alliance and built trust between the two nations. In 2006, China and Nigeria signed a Memorandum of Understanding on the establishment of strategic partnerships, which was the first for an African country. The partnership led to an oil for infrastructure arrangement, under which Chinese companies were offered first access to oil processing licenses. In February 2021, the Nigerian government commemorated 50 years of establishing official diplomatic relations with China. Within this period, the economic engagement between the two countries have grown significantly from the first wave of Hong Kong Chinese investment in the 1960s to a situation where there are approximately 1,000 Chinese firms currently operating in Nigeria. As part of this deepening arrangement, Nigeria was selected in 2006 to host two of the first special economic zones that the Chinese government committed to developing in Africa. The first was the Lekki Free Trade Zone, while the second was the Ogun Guangdong Free Trade Zone. Given the roles played by the special economic zones in China's industrialization, this was seen by Chinese as a way of lending their industrial expertise to Nigeria. The newest free trade zone to be invested upon by the Chinese government is the Brass Free Trade Zone located in Bayelsa State. This is a significant investment by the Chinese. The project, also known as the Brass Oil and Gas City, was declared an oil and gas free trade zone in 2015. It is a partnership between Bayelsa State, the private sectors, and of course the Chinese. The project anchor investment is a $3.5 billion greenfield methanol and petrochemical plant, which will process about 500 million standard cubic feet of gas per day and produce 10,000 tons of methanol daily. The plant will use abundant gas deposits in Bayelsa State as feedstock. The Brass Free Trade Zone project is expected to have a significant impact on the economy of Bayelsa State and Nigeria as a whole. It will create jobs, stimulate economic growth, and increase foreign investments in the region.